One of my yoga teachers poses the rhetorical question, what's stronger, your intentions or your habits? If your answer is that your intentions are stronger, then good for you, and you don't need this video. But if you find that your habits are stronger, we're going to spend a few minutes today discussing some of the good habits that construct a great mindfulness practice. Hi, I'm Steve from Steve White Yoga, offering you the application of yoga to manage your health, improve your relationships, and take control of your life. Here's today's session. All right, so welcome to you all, old and new. I mean, I don't mean any of you are old. I just simply mean that if you've been doing these sessions before, then you're experienced, I guess is what that is. And if not, then welcome anyway. So this is about a particular style of meditation called mindfulness. And we do a little bit of talking, and then we do a little bit of practicing. Last week was, we did Tuesday and Thursday last week, and it was a little more intense, a little more serious practices, I guess. So this week we're going to sort of take it easy, if that's okay. I assume that'll be okay with everybody. So here are the basics that sort of support doing anything like this, any kind of a mindful practice. It's clearly recognized that our brains are organs of habit, and that the primary mechanism for our behavior and our interaction with our environment is based on a survival instinct that's dictated by the portion of the brain called the limbic brain. It's the most primitive part. It has evolved over tens of millions of years, and yet its evolution still leaves it without really any reference to language. So the limbic brain doesn't understand language. It understands events. And so it scans for danger, it identifies threats, it anticipates possible harm to the organism, and that's sort of what it's designed to do. The difficult part for us is that we're therefore sort of overridden in our thoughts, behaviors, and feelings by this limbic brain. And so much of our interaction with the world then becomes based on a fear response. And you may be familiar with the workings of this, at least at some points in your life. So if I say public speaking to a lot of people, that will immediately invoke a fear response. So this is what we're all about with these particular sets of practices, although this permeates really every yoga practice you could possibly come up with, whether it's what we do when we can be in the studio in flow class, or in breathing practices, or chanting, or anything that's done in the yoga world. So they're all sort of geared toward the same end. A quote from the unknown: 3 things you cannot recover in life: the word after it's said, the momentum after it's missed, and the time after it's gone. And the encouragement there is to use your time wisely, particularly if you have excess time on your hands these days. And as it happens, this makes this mindfulness practice makes an excellent way to spend some of your time. So quick definition, I change them out as we've been going through this sort of series of practices. Mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. So this is the aim of these particular kinds of meditations, is to reduce our tendency to be reactive, to immediately go into fear mode or anger mode or frustration mode or whatever mode may be appropriate, and rather to have some space, is the way that I usually like to describe it. Some space in which to sort of take in whatever the situation is and to reflect on it in such a way that we can not be so reactive. that we can, instead of finding struggle, difficulty, anxiety, we can find some sense of peace and comfort in spite of the fact that life may not be going exactly the way that we want it to. So this is mindfulness. It begins with an intention, and it begins with just a few minutes a day. So I thought I'd introduce, we've been talking about Western, sort of the Western cognates, they call it, the Western equivalents of uh, taking it from the yoga language and the yoga sort of philosophy and interpreting it in Western terms. And since there is lots now of evidence to back it up, we can talk in fairly direct and authoritative Western terms about what this stuff does. So there's a principle called neuroplasticity. Um, it's interesting to me that up until, well, 100 years ago anyway, it had always been assumed, for as long as science has been connected to humans, that the brain was essentially a fixed mechanism. In other words, once you got to the point where you had fully matured, the brain just sort of did what it did, just as the liver does what it does, or the spleen does what it does if you still have your spleen. Not that I hope you have it removed, but I know a lot of people who have. But the point is that it was assumed that there was, the brain was essentially like a non-renewable organ. It just sat and kind of did its thing. And starting maybe 100 years ago or so, the concept or the idea that the brain had a capacity to be malleable or plastic, and it began to sort of take roots, although not be popularized. And in fact, it wasn't until the 70s that the scientific community started to really accept that the brain had a potential to change and evolve. And so it was a whole new way of looking at things. So a quick definition of neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. It's our capacity to adapt, essentially. And that adaptation mostly is unconscious. If we're learning a new skill, if you decide to play the piano, or I sort of think of myself as being able to play guitar, new skills would be one way in which neuroplasticity takes root. And another way is through meditation. And this is another conscious way in which we can really change the neural patterns of our brain. So this is what neuroplasticity is. A recent study, there are many of these studies, found that different forms of meditation can have different positive effects on the brain. So different styles of meditation may do their work differently in terms of impacting neuroplasticity. Things from improving attention span to making an individual more empathetic, reducing stress levels, or helping a person stay calm in the midst of pressure. So these structural changes that take place in the brain, we have the capacity to reduce or eliminate pathways and to create new ones. So out with the old and with the new. Relieve yourself of your bad habits and introduce some good habits, hopefully, in their place. All right. So as I said earlier, the practice today is relatively simple. And why don't we get to it? And there are a few things I want to say at the end of practice that will address sort of the second part of the subject of today. I wanted to talk about neuroplasticity. I wanted to do this practice. And then in the end, for those of you who have been participating or not, and take this to heart, I'm going to start to provide some sort of guidance for how one might do their own individual practice. So I want to leave a little bit of room for that at the end. So all of that said, let's talk about anchors really quickly. Anchors are something that we choose to focus our attention on, which is there for us to remember to be present. And the way the mind works, and nobody's mind gets away from this, this possibility, is that we start to center ourselves, our attention on something, and then our attention moves. And our mind wants to think about whatever it wants to think about. So it's used to this movement. It's sort of inherent as one of the qualities of the mind. But stillness is another inherent quality. And so we need to access that stillness through these practices. So we use anchors, three in particular. These are not the only three anchors by any means, but they're the simplest ones to use from a mindfulness practice sense. And they are the breath, sound, and sensation. And we will have an experience of all three of those very shortly here. All right. So I'm going to ask you to settle in and get a comfortable seat for yourself where you can be relaxed and yet attentive. And as you settle in, you can have your hands relaxing with your palms facing down. And just get a little sense or a big sense of just being here. Relax the weight of your body into the support of the floor or the chair. And notice how your body makes contact. Relax the back of your legs, your hips, relax your low back and your shoulders. Relax the muscles of your face. And just feel yourself sitting. Let your senses be awake. Listen. Feel your breath. Listen to your body from the inside out. And then take a few moments to scan through your body with awareness. And if you find tension, just let it ease a little bit and receive whatever life is there. Notice your shoulders, your jaw, your forehead. Notice your hands and fingers, your chest, your belly. Feel whatever sensations you experience from the inside and let go. You might imagine ice turning to water, turning to vapor. Feel the energy in your arms. And bring your awareness to your hands, easy and effortless. As you soften into your hands, notice what you can feel from the inside out. Tingling, buzzing, maybe temperature, air pressure. As you settle your awareness into your hands even more, notice whether you receive more aliveness, more intimate presence with the hands. Bring your attention to your chest and allow it to be open. Your belly also to be open. As you feel your chest and your belly receiving the in breath, feel them softening further. Next inhale again. Next inhale again. And again. Have some awareness of the contact with the chair or the cushion or the floor. And feel the support of that. Feel your legs from the inside out. Allow your feet, your toes to receive sensation and soften even more. Maybe you can widen your field of attention to feel whole the body as a field of sensation or a field of energy. Not stopping or controlling anything, just allowing and watching, listening. Continue to receive the breath, relaxing the inflow, relaxing the outflow. Can you experience the breath as being in the foreground, but it's like bathed in a feeling of aliveness, a feeling of presence, a field of energy? When you notice that the mind has drifted into thoughts, direct that awareness back to the body. You might reacquaint with the shoulders or the hands or the chest or the belly. Recontact with your internal environment. And allow the breath to move within this field of awareness, this field of presence. Sometimes it helps when the mind wanders to listen again to sounds, moment to moment. From the closest, most apparent sounds to the more distant, the more subtle. Without concluding anything about sound, just have the experience of listening. Draw your awareness back for a moment to rest on the breath. And notice as many sensations as you can of taking the breath in and releasing out. The more practice we have with the process of following the breath, the more subtleties we can take into our awareness. You might try experiencing the stream of the breath as it enters from just outside your nostrils and allowing your awareness to follow its travel all the way into the head, down the throat, and into your torso. You might likewise follow the breath from wherever it originates inside and hold your awareness on the path as it leaves through the throat, through the head, through the nose, into space. As your attention leaves, just notice that. Root back into sensation or sound or breath. And then go ahead and relax your effort. And if your eyes were closed, go ahead and open your eyes. Welcome back. So this is a fairly simple meditation. Um, and it's the kind of thing that can really be done anytime or anywhere. You don't have to listen to me or anybody else. You can do it yourself. This is the mindfulness equivalent of counting sheep, I suppose, is one way to look at it. Speaking of which, while I'm thinking about it, on Thursday, if you come back for that practice, we're actually going to do a body scan, which means for the first time, it's going to be suggested that you lie down. So that's a completely different experience for most people. And let me just get back to sharing screen here. And I wanted to start to provide some guidelines, because over the past, if you've been with us for portions of the past few weeks, I think it's 3 or 4 weeks we've been doing this, you've sort of had exposure to a number of different techniques, and those techniques, taken individually, are all interesting and stuff, but it's sometimes nice to sort of frame them in a context, which is what I hope to do now. Here we have 3 sort of places to think about, or things to think about, if you're going to establish your own practice. The first one has to do with the surroundings themselves. And frankly, you can, the beauty about these practices is that you can do them pretty much anywhere. But what's really nice is that if you can sort of establish your own place, your own space, and if possible, a consistent one. That doesn't work with everybody's life and everybody's circumstances, I understand, but I grew up, didn't really grow up. I was 45 years old when this started, but when I was in Buddhism, learning meditation, what they would say is, even if you established the space and had to put it away when you were all done and bring it out again later, then it's better to sort of have something that's, without overstating it too much, a little bit sacred. A place that's quiet, free of distractions, hopefully, and a place that is comfortable for you. I would almost say comfy, but I'm a guy and I don't like to say comfy. It just doesn't seem right to me. But you know what I mean. A space that's comfortable for you. Perhaps provides some serenity. As far as consistency goes, it's like anything else, and we relate a lot to sort of physical exercise because people can sort of get their mind wrapped around the idea of physical exercise. If you do it once a month, it's better than not doing it at all, but not much. If you do it once a week, it's a start. If you do it 4 or 5 times a week, it's going to make a big difference in your life. And the effects of this stuff tend to be cumulative. So even if you get distracted in life or whatever, and suddenly 2 days or 3 days or 5 days or 2 weeks has gone by, and it's all like, oh my God, I really want to meditate, but I haven't been able to get to it. Don't worry about that, because there are still some benefits that have accumulated as a result of the fact that you've dived into these practices. So the prescription is to do it every day. It doesn't work for everyone to do it every day, and I understand that, but as often as you can, let's say, is very helpful in terms of consistency. Time of day is also, in the tradition at least, it's always recommended that you take a specific time of day to do it. And it doesn't have to be on the minute, of course, but early morning or midday or early evening or whatever. If you can establish within the context of your life something that works for you, that can be really helpful to develop that consistency. It also enforces the habit of it, really, as much as anything. And if you're kind of all over the map and, oh yeah, I didn't have time to do it this morning, so I'll try and fit it in sometime in the middle of the afternoon, and then time gets away from you. We've all had these experiences where best intentions go asunder because we get away from our habits. So in terms of habit forming, it's good to do it at a specific time of day. And then the timer is, I've always found that to use a timer is really helpful, and it can be a timer on your phone as long as you turn your phone on airplane mode so you're not getting buzzes or beeps or rings or whatever. Or if you have a kitchen timer laying around, there is such a thing as a meditation timer, although I don't think they're around very much anymore. But the real key is not to set it or any timekeeping device in front of you, The key is to set it to the side or behind you so that you don't have the temptation to peek an eye open or look over to see what's going on and, oh my gosh, how much time do I have left? So I think a timer can be very helpful to sort of, again, cement the whole idea of making this a habit and making it consistent. How long do you practice? 10 minutes is really great for starting this out. And if you can commit to 10 minutes most days of the week, then you're going to notice some results. And the results are going to be, once they appear, it's going to be a little astonishing and a little surprising and hopefully very motivating to continue. That's the experience of most meditators. So those are some of the habits. We'll have some more later on Thursday and I'm sure beyond. And then if I'm having a little trouble here with my PowerPoint, it's just awesome. Here's some resources. So I've decided to add a tip. Sorry. Embrace distractions. When I first started this process of meditating, there was a bus stop outside of the meditation hall where I went. And I used to curse the bus every time it stopped and did its thing. And then I realized that, this is part of life and distractions are inevitable. And so it's better to embrace the distractions rather than curse them. If you're interested in reading, there is a book by the godfather of modern day mindfulness practice. His name is John Kabat-Zinn, and the book is called Mindfulness for Beginners. So if you're a reader and if that interests you, there is a mobile app called Stop, Breathe, and Think. I like this one because it includes the word breathe, and I feel as a yoga teacher that breathing sometimes is ignored by the mindfulness community. So there's a free version of it and then a paid version. So if you don't have an app that you're already sort of working with and attached to, and you'd like to have something to help guide, consider that one. Stop, Breathe, and Think. And then you can find me on YouTube, Steve White Yoga, 3 separate words. So keep your eyes out for that. And all of these practices are now going up. These mindfulness practices we're doing here are going up on the YouTube channel as well. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Please check out Steve White Yoga for additional tools and practices to deal with changing conditions and changing times. And please be sure to hit the like button. Every like is a drop of karma in the yoga bucket. We'll see you next time.